So you're an entrepreneur and a business owner, and you've probably started your business to have more fulfillment and passion. But you know what the interesting truth is? So many entrepreneurs still don't feel fulfilled. They feel drained. They feel like it's an elusive dream. They haven't quite figured out how to tap into that passion and purpose and really make their business soar. Well, our guest today has some really valuable insights into how to experience more meaning and purpose in your work. I'm excited to introduce her to you. I'll bring her to you in just a minute. But first, I'm Melanie Benson, and I am America's leading small business optimizer, and I'm the host of this podcast, Small Business Optimizer. And I like to bring you guests and topics and concepts and tips to help you replace overwhelm or maybe just good enough results with approaches that are going to help you make your business perform better, make you have more joy and more fulfillment in your business. And ultimately, I want to help you get to a place where you're automatically generating exponential impact and profits because you're doing more of what you love. And my guest today couldn't be a better guest, a more perfect topic to really hit home with that passion and purpose today. Let me introduce you to Christine Gallagher. She is a potential and inspiration catalyst and founder of SheGotClients.com, a company that's dedicated to teaching women around the globe how to find more meaning, fulfillment, and purpose in their life through the power of entrepreneurship. Now, as our men are listening in today, don't tune away just because Christine focuses on women. There's so many nuggets and so much valuable wisdom in this topic. And you might just know a woman or two who could really benefit from the advice you're going to get today. So, Christine, thanks so much for being here with me.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here, Melanie. Great.
Yeah, and you know, it's funny. We've known each other for a while. We've connected before, but it's that powerful Instagram that brought us back together.
I know. It's so sad. We love Instagram right now. Like, that's our thing. So yeah. It was great to connect there.
Yeah, and it's funny, you know, my last guest was Sue Zimmerman, who is so passionate about Instagram. So we were talking a lot about that, and I realized there are so many people I'm reconnecting with in a bigger way by just being really present and focused on truly connecting with people in the social media world. So I'm so glad that we reconnected that way.
Me too. It's awesome.
Yeah. So I'm curious, you know, I don't know how long you've been in business. How many years?
Almost 7 now.
Okay. Yeah. So you've had quite a bit of time. I think there's that 7-year, it's kind of like something about that 5 to 7 years that really kind of makes that substantial business time in the trenches. But how did you get to the point where you decided to really hone in and focus on the meaning and fulfillment side of running a business?
Yeah, I love this question because this is a semi-recent occurrence in my business. Okay. So I originally started out as the social media gal. You know, I hung my virtual shingle out as a social media consultant way back end of 2008. And it's just sort of grown and evolved from there. But what you realize, as you mentioned, over 5 years, 7 years, you start to get sort of that, your why changes, like the why you're doing things changes. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because I joke that my why back then was like, I just don't want to have to go back to another job. Like that's my why. And now it's about, you know what, there's more to life than, you know, just sort of grinding it out day to day. I believe that entrepreneurship is a great way, especially for women, to live a richer, fuller life. Give them more freedom, flexibility to cash in on their passions. I mean, there's so many great reasons to be an entrepreneur, as you know. And so I think it's just evolved over time, seeing the women that come to me, seeing what they want out of life, and then also taking what I want out of life and sharing it with people. And there really is more than just what you think. So, yeah.
Okay, so I got to dig into this a little bit because as an entrepreneur, you know, so many of us are starting this because we're passionate about something or we want to be more fulfilled than the way we felt when, like for me, when I was in corporate America, I didn't feel fulfilled. I felt empty and I didn't really have a lot of meaning in my work at the time.
Yeah.
But as entrepreneurs, do you find that sometimes people are still missing that real fulfillment and purpose and passion in their work?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it's the first hurdle is getting to be an entrepreneur if you've been in corporate like I was, and academia. And you get to be an entrepreneur and you're like, this is great, but so many things happen as an entrepreneur. You know, the whole personal development happens because, you go through a lot as an entrepreneur personally and professionally. And you just sort of realize that, maybe this isn't what I signed up for. Not everybody, but I hear that from people, especially women. They've either created another job for themselves. They don't understand, how to leverage and take it to the next level. So they're kind of stuck at one place. There's so many things that go on. And my whole thing now is like, yeah, it's great to have freedom. Yeah, it's great to work for yourself. But are you personally fulfilled? Are you going to bed at night and being like, yeah, I cannot wait to get up in the morning and do this again? There's more to entrepreneurship than just the profits and, how many connections you have on Twitter or whatever. There's this whole idea of actually really being fulfilled as an entrepreneur. And I think it's something that needs to be talked about more.
Yeah, I agree. I work with a lot of people who are at the top of their game. They've kind of made it big in some way, shape, or form. And yet there's this deep gnawing feeling that it's still not enough.
Yeah.
They're still not doing the thing that they were born to do. And, they're questioning, am I leaving behind a legacy? And I think this conversation about meaning and fulfillment is one that a lot of people push aside because they think, I got to focus on making money. I got to, this is a business. I don't have to care about it. So if somebody's in that space where they're saying to themselves, well, as long as I'm making money and I'm getting something out there in the world that adds value, why do I need to have passion?
Yeah. So I get that. I totally get that because that's, what we're sort of taught to focus on. You got to make money, you got to hit these goals, you got to achieve. I'm an achiever. In Strength Finders, that assessment, my number one strength is achiever. So it's like a double-edged sword for me because, I can work myself like crazy. And I think that, it's really important to remember that money is not going to be the ultimate fulfillment for you. Like I hear lots of people saying it's all about getting to 6 figures or getting to 7 figures. And it's really more about the person you become in the process is what I've learned from my own experience and mentors of mine. Mm-hmm. It's how you change and grow as a person. And that's, a whole other level beyond just getting to a certain number. So for me, I've changed, evolved, and grown from the social media gal to more looking at like, how can I leave a legacy and affect change in a bigger way around the world? But I didn't start out that way. I couldn't see that far. But that's what keeps me going now. The money is good and I like to have financial goals, but it's more about this bigger purpose, this legacy I want to leave that for the past couple of years has really come to the forefront. And I'm noticing myself feeling a lot more contented with where I am. And I think that that's not a coincidence.
Yeah. So in your experience, I know we talked a little bit about some of the things that might be missing. If I need to create more fulfillment in my work, what are some really hard signs that might be, maybe I'm not really deeply connected to the work that I'm doing?
Yeah. So I always describe it as, either a yearning or it's more like something's missing, something's not, it's not like, I describe it as a spark. When I get up in the morning and I'm feeling really good about my business and I have a bigger mission, I feel a spark of creativity, excitement. I want to get up. I want to get to my desk. I want to do the work. And I think that so many people end up burnout. Like we said, they've created another job for themselves, or they just aren't sort of connecting with what they're doing for their work and they're doing what they think they should be doing. And this is something I see.
That's a key word, by the way, the should.
Yes, the shoulds, right? Shoulding all over yourself. And so I see this in some of my clients sometimes. They're like, well, I'm doing this because, so-and-so does this. And I'm like, how are you feeling about that? What's it like? And they're like, I hate it, but I guess I have to do it, things like this. And it's like, hey, wait a minute, stop. Like, what happened? Like, let's remember why we wanted to be entrepreneurs in the first place. We can have control of our time and what we do and how we feel. And like, let's get back in touch with that. And I think it starts with that awareness that something's going on. It's like a stirring.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I hit a space in my own business where I realized the passion was waning and my fire was not as strong as it needed to be. And one of the things that happened for me is what I was doing wasn't working anymore. I literally, didn't matter how hard I tried, I was not fulfilling my deepest level purpose on this planet. And so it's almost like this cosmic energetic thing kicked in and said, you're not doing what you were born to do. This is not going to work until you step up and step into it. Yeah. Do you ever see that in your clients?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. There's so many things. It kind of reminds me of what we talk about, myself and my clients, when we talk about this breakdowns that happen or chaos that goes on. And they're like, well, why is this happening to me? Or why is this not working anymore? And it's like you said, Melanie, it's like there's some things trying to get to you. You know, there's some message that you're supposed to hear here. And it's not always easy and it's not always pretty. And especially those of us who do feel like we have this bigger purpose and mission, you know, sometimes we're the ones who have to really, you know, can I say, go through the fire to get there, because we need to have those experiences to help other people. So there's a whole thing we could get into about that.
You know, it's funny you bring that up because I haven't talking about this a lot yet, but I'm bringing a program out to the world called Awaken Leadership. And one of the things that I see that happens for a lot of us is as leaders, you know, we actually have to feel excited and passionate about that. And when we're evolving as human beings, that passion can shift.
Yeah.
And that passion changes, and you've got to be able to connect the dots again for yourself and say, what is it that is that next thing I'm being called to do that I have to wake up to? And it's good that there are people like you who really specialize in this area, because it can be a really confusing time. It's like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do next.
Absolutely. And you know, it's so true. I the word that comes to mind when you're talking is honor. You have to honor that.
Yeah. Even if it makes no sense.
Even if it makes no sense. Even if you're like, why is everything blowing up? And you know, I put a book out last year. It's called There's More Than Life to This. There's more to life than this. And so what I talk about in there is a lot of those kind of things that happen. And I tell my personal story, which is a story of so many misalignments. Like, I was misaligned here, I was misaligned there, I was misaligned in my marriage, and, you know, it all seemed like chaos. And the lesson that comes out in the end is like, no, you have to go through that to get to that next place. So I'm sure, right? I'm sure how you felt that when you were like, the passion was gone. Yeah. It's kind of like, what, is there a trick being played on me? Like, what's going on here?
I so want to do a fist bump right now, but you know, it's just weird. It just doesn't work on video, but I feel so connected to what you're saying, and it's interesting. I didn't even know this part of your story, that we've both been going through similar stuff in the background. Yeah, I love it. Yeah. So, all right. So let's say someone's recognizing they could use more fulfillment. You know, they want to really like deepen their connection to a legacy and be able to bring that out in the world. What are a couple things that they could start to move forward? And I hesitate to use the word take action on, because sometimes it's not taking action, but maybe to get conscious of and become aware of, and maybe take action if it's appropriate.
Yeah, you know, there's a lot of different, you know, things that we could talk about, but I think that one of the things that I just love is to talk about how you can look at what makes you come alive or get emotional. And I know because for me, I've always gotten really emotional about animals. You know, like I feel so connected to animals, sometimes more than humans, and I laugh about it. But, you know, one of my big dreams that I hope my business will be able to finance is to open an animal sanctuary. And, you know, it's that bigger thing that I discovered for myself. It's like, okay, my goal has now gone from just have to make enough money from, you know, to get by every month to I want to open this animal sanctuary. And that only came about because I was connecting to the things that were really stirring my soul. And sometimes people will come up with these things. I'll ask them about that. They'll come up with these ideas and they'll be like, but what does this have to, they'll be like, it doesn't have to do with anything. And I'm like, no, let's really look at that. What's going on there? So I think that digging in and really connecting with your heart and understanding what it is that makes you come alive. You know, I've said that before, but that's really what it is. And I think that can sometimes give you a clue as to what your legacy is supposed to be or what your purpose is supposed to be. And when I throw around the word legacy, people are like, but, you know.
Why? Because it feels big?
It feels big, and some people don't. This is all about, you know, mindset and self-esteem and things, but they might feel that that's too big for them. Or, you know, it's just my business here, you know, me and my virtual assistant. It's like, no, there can be you can leave a ding in the universe. It might not be as big as Steve Jobs, but it can be a ding in your own way. And like, let's look at what that is for you. So it takes some soul searching, but I think it's worth it.
So here's what I hear you saying right now, is that sometimes the legacy work and the thing that you're really, is going to bring that passion may or may not be the business that generates your cash flow.
Yeah, that's right. That is right. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is an interesting dynamic for a lot of people to recognize there's something bigger than them, something even bigger than the business they run. Because for many people, their business already feels really big.
Yeah.
So how do I start to move towards this bigger dream, knowing that what's right in front of me isn't going to be anything to do with this bigger dream?
Yeah.
Because this, by the way, I'm bringing this up because in my coaching work over the years, this is where people hold themselves back and play small because they don't know what the path is, and this thing out here feels so big and so crazy that they're like, and they shut it down. Yeah. So let's give them a path.
Yeah, I love this. So, this is perfect timing because I had a coaching call with a client today who she is, real estate broker, New York City, works for one of the biggest companies in the world. And, she's doing deals here and there, and it's not what she wants to do ultimately. And so we're working together to create a plan to get her going in another direction. Now, she said the same thing to me. She's like, I have this vision of what I want to do, but it feels so big, and I know it's what I need to do, but I'm terrified. And, that's part of why she hired me, is to help craft that plan to get there. But again, she doesn't have like all the pieces. She just sort of sees this bigger vision. And so one of the things is just looking at every decision that you have to make and looking at what is the next step. Because again, if you were to see all the steps to get you to that big thing, you'd freak out. Like, you don't need to see the whole pathway. It's just like, what's maybe the next little step? So this is just fresh in my mind from my client. But what we talked about on our call today was, she's trying to get out of this certain industry, but for now, we're going to maximize her time there so that it fuels like this other direction she wants to go in. So it's almost like, let's use what you're doing now to fund, the TV show and the spirituality work and all the stuff that you really want to do. And she said, yeah. She's like, so last week I told this group that I would do this deal with them, this real estate deal with them. And at first I thought it was going in the backwards direction from what I want. And we looked at that decision. We realized that deep down, she said yes to that deal because she knew that she would get a chunk of a certain amount of money that would help her move in the right direction. So it's like a temporary sort of like shift, but it's just like, all right, it's helping me get in that other direction. And she feels better about that now because she's like, I see how it can connect me to the bigger thing that scares me. I'm like, right, it's just one little decision we're making right now, and then we'll deal with the next one.
So, what I'm hearing is there's a lot of trust that has to happen. And I know that trust doesn't come naturally for everybody.
Yeah.
And of course, you probably know that my work is really, there's a lot of mindset that is required, a lot of mindset shifts, a lot of mindset up-leveling, being able to fine-tune what's happening inside our thought patterns and our belief systems that allow us to go on this journey that you're talking about. So if somebody's fighting this and resisting, or this feels so crazy to them, let's talk about the mindset shift that needs to occur to be able to embrace not knowing.
Yes. And it's so what entrepreneurship is about. It's like that faith walk. And so my whole thing in the beginning of my business was I had to learn how to, keep the sort of the balance between the faith and the fear, because the fear kept coming up and I kept going, if I walk into this fear, if I keep moving towards this goal, it felt like I was going to die. That's what it felt like. But I started realizing that, it's trusting even though you don't know what the outcome is going to be, and trusting that even if it doesn't work out the way you want, you're still on perfect time. You're totally on time with where you have to be in your business and your life at that moment. It's getting you to where you're ultimately supposed to go. That's trust. Because, a lot of people be like, well, no, I have to know the end, because that was me in school. I was like, I have to know A to Z. I have to know all the, that's how I was sort of brought up. And entrepreneurship's a totally different ballgame, as you know. It's like you don't necessarily know. And another thing my clients struggle with is, well, tell me how. How, every single step, like you mentioned.
Yeah, I need to see all the steps before I know what to do next.
Yeah, it's like you never will see the whole path. And if you did, as we said, it would scare the crap out of you.
Yeah, it creates a lot of overwhelm. It's like, oh my God, this is way
Totally.
bigger than I thought it was going to be.
Totally. But if you take it just the one step at a time, it's doable. It's like, okay, I made it. I did it. So, yeah.
I'm thinking of this saying that I've heard in a lot of different ways, but that when we have the willingness to not see the whole picture, to not have to know every step of the way, what happens is if we trust that we're going to move towards that place, but we don't have to know what every step is, that as we take each step, we actually evolve ourselves and we become stronger. And the steps that are required, we're being prepared to take in that moment.
Yeah.
And
Love that.
I know for myself, like if I had ever imagined what I'm about ready to step into, I would have freaked myself out and never done it, 10 years ago when I started this. That was the furthest thing from my mind. So I think that's a big part of it, isn't it?
It is a big part of it. You would have talked yourself out of it. You would have been like, no way. And so that's really what I try to get across to people. And even the most like tiny levels, like, what if I send that email out and, like people freak out about the day-to-day stuff. And I'm like, and, it's like, what if you send it out and something really great comes from that? And even if something great doesn't come from it, you're going to stretch and grow just by going through that experience of sending out the email that you were terrified to send out.
A friend of mine always says, stop looking for all the reasons why it won't work and start looking for the reasons why it will work.
I love that.
Yeah.
So true.
So let's talk more about your own journey with this, because you mentioned a couple minutes ago how, your own path brought up a lot of fear and you had to balance that with faith. You've been in business long enough that you've faced a lot of challenges and you've made a pivot in what you offer to the world. So what would you say is the biggest challenge you personally faced in your business?
Yeah. So, I mean, I really, not to beat a dead horse, I have to go back to the faith versus fear. Like, this is huge. Every single day, I still work on keeping myself in the place of faith more than fear. So, in the very beginning, it was about, did I have somebody to talk to outside of just me talking to myself? Did I have a friend or a colleague or a mastermind buddy to talk to?
Or coach?
Our coach, right? Like let that out and just really talk to somebody who understands, and now it's become a really, a word that I like to use is it's discipline. It's become discipline for me because I realize I need even more, what's the word? Like, I need more like structure around staying in faith. So whereas before I would read books here and there and I would always say, oh, I don't watch the news because it brings me down. Like now it's like I get up 2 hours earlier than I really would want to get up because I'm not a morning person. And I have my whole practice in the morning of gratitude and goal setting and visualization and meditation. And if you had said I'd be doing all this like in the beginning of my business, I would have been like, no way. But now I do it because it's like the next level, whatever next level you're going to, there's always going to be a new challenge and you have to come up with a new way to handle that and deal with that. And so for me right now with where I am, this is what I need to do. Rolling out of bed really early and spending that extra time, like fortifying. That's the word that I was trying to think of, fortifying myself.
That's a great word.
Yeah. And personal things have gone on and it's really been extra important the past year or two. I left a marriage, moved out on my own. It's like, I'm like, this is a whole new level and I need a whole new set of tools to deal with it. So it changes as you go.
Yeah. Well, we're evolving organisms, anybody that thinks a human being is going to stay the same.
No.
Yeah. This just doesn't work. That's not who we are, especially if we're entrepreneurial or creative by nature.
Yeah. If you're not growing, you're dying is what they say.
So when it comes to running your business, I know that one of the things that we all have to face is that there will be things in our business that we do all wrong in the beginning. Mm-hmm. And then we figure out, okay, if I actually really focus on optimizing and make this one thing really perform well, it's the key to making my business, be able to get more income or to have more time or whatever that end game is. Did you have one of those pivot moments for yourself where you realize I need to optimize this part of my business if my business is going to thrive?
Hmm. Well, I want to say there's actually two different ones.
Sure.
Because they were different stages of the business.
Okay.
So in the first year and a half, it seems so obvious now when I look back. It's like, duh. But I didn't understand that if I wanted to make a certain amount of money that month, I had to make a certain amount of offers. I had to make offers and ask for the money. Like literally, it was almost like I was just waiting for, people to show up and, waiting for the sales to come. And it's like, no, it doesn't work that way. You have to make offers. And looking back, I'm like, well, how did I not know that? But, now I see clients going through that. It's like, they had a couple great months in a row where they didn't really, get proactive. And now they're realizing, okay, I need to do something.
Okay.
So there's that. It's, obviously that's marketing planning. I plan out the whole rest of the year in December, and that's what I need to do. But the other thing was, when I got to the point where I realized I needed to bring on even more team, not just an assistant here or there, but when I brought on, my first employee, this was all very hard for me because I have that personality like a lot of entrepreneurs do where it's, control. And I had to relinquish that control. And, this is something I know that you talk about a lot with, growing a team and delegating and leveraging. I had to get out of my comfort zone in such a big way because I was so in fear of like, if I give this to that person, if I hire this person, what if? And again, it's like, what if? You have to have that trust level there before you can start building a team and growing your business to the next level. And so I think optimizing that in the sense that I worked on myself to really learn how to give it up. And let people help me is really what it was.
Yeah.
That is huge. That has been huge because I was the bottleneck, like so many of us end up being. Yeah.
It's funny. It's one of my best talks that I get booked to do a lot is how to stop being the bottleneck in your significant success. And I love it when somebody else uses that word. I'm like, it's true. We become the bottleneck. So, and I'm glad you brought up both of those pieces because you're right. At different stages of our evolution and the business growth, we're going to be faced with different things we have to focus on making work better. And there does become a point where we have to really look at our team, and it can't just be random VAs or we have to change the way we're managing and leading these people because the way we started in the beginning isn't going to get us where we want to go next.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
And, I'm kind of curious. You said employee. And there's a huge shift inside that many of us have to take on when it's time to hire an employee versus just hiring a contractor or a virtual assistant or somebody who can do a piece of the puzzle. What did you have to really know for yourself to take that leap of faith?
That's a really good question. So, I think that one of the big things was understanding, because I fought that a lot. When I was trying to make that decision, I was like, but, everything's been flowing pretty smooth with the virtual people who are here and there, and, they're great. And I still work with team members that way. But with the employee, I had to realize, and a mentor of mine also cemented this for me, that there's something about an employee that they're going to take, in most cases, much more ownership of what your mission is in the company than just someone who's virtual. Now, not to say that they aren't excited about what we do and everything, but it's just a whole different mindset.
It is.
It's a job for them. And, they may be, working out of the house or whatever they're doing, but they are committed to your business like you are. And, no one's going to be committed as at the level you are, but I think that they take more of that ownership on, and it's important for them. And that was important for me at that point because I had this bigger vision and legacy and all that stuff was coming up for me. And I'm like, okay, in order to get there, like you said, can't do things the way we've always done. And so then that's when I brought on my first employee. And yeah, it was scary. But see, that's sort of how I justified it to myself. I'm like, it's a big, huge step, but it's like, this is a big girl business now.
Yeah. With the big girl panties on, and we got to rock this out.
Yeah, exactly.
So do you have a favorite quote or piece of advice that you were given at some point that you kind of hold on to keep you focused on doing the right things?
Yeah, it's a quote that's actually been on my Facebook, like on my profile for years and years and years, probably since I first got on Facebook. And it's by somebody called Raymond Hollowell,
Oh, yeah.
and he says, "No desire is felt until the supply is ready to appear." And when I first heard that, like 8 years ago or so, I just was like so blown away because I thought, how reassuring. And throughout my career in entrepreneurship, I always come back to that quote. I always share it at my workshops. I always talk about because that quote is what kept me going in the beginning. It's what keeps me going now. It's like it's trust, right? That if I have this desire and I really, really want this, it's ready to manifest somewhere. And so now I share that with my clients because I think it is sort of a comforting thought. And the funny thing is, when I first heard that quote, Melanie, it was when I was still in a job and I was miserable and I was trying to get out and start my own business. And I kept hearing that quote, but in different ways from other people. Like it was the same idea, different wording. And I just thought, this is a sign. And so since then, it's been, sort of like my go-to. I love it.
So you really want to have your mind blown?
Please do.
That was my first spiritual center. As I went to school or went to church as a young child with Raymond Hollowell. He was our minister. Isn't that wild? I had no idea the significance and the meaning and the value that would hold later in my life because trust me, I did not follow that path for many years. Isn't that wild though?
I have chills.
Yeah, I know. I did too when you said that. I'm like, oh my God, I knew there was a reason why you and I are supposed to connect in a deeper way. There's a lot of synergy, but
because no one ever knows who he is, even when I say, but that was your myth.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that was my first spiritual teacher.
Wow.
And interestingly enough, and we'll close with this, but there's something that many of us, as we really tap more deeply into fulfillment and find this legacy that we're supposed to live, I actually wasn't not clear what my real legacy was for many, many years in running my own business. And it wasn't until I reconnected with some of Raymond Hollowell's work when I was going through a really, really tough time. It's funny, my mom kept one of the books that she had when she was in class with him because she studied as a spiritual, I guess just took spiritual classes with him. She kept one of the original books and she handed it to me and she said, I think it's time. And I'm like, okay. So,
wow.
I kind of peeked it open and I'm like, oh man, that's right. I remember this. Oh yeah. Now I understand what this means. Okay.
Now you know.
It was a catalyst for me in a lot of ways and it actually helped me step more deeply into my own legacies to reconnect with something that was my seed of greatness as a child. So I think sometimes that's a clue where our passion and our greater legacy can come from is those sparks as children, that
Absolutely.
we don't know what they're supposed to mean till later.
Yeah, that's so great. Thank you for sharing that. It's awesome.
It's fun.
Yeah.
So I love this. And of course, as you probably can imagine, I find there's a lot of power in really understanding how to get more meaning in our lives. First of all, it's such a more beautiful way to live. And I think it makes everything in our world make more sense. We make better decisions. We lead more peaceful and more powerful lives. So I'd love if you would share with people how they can connect with maybe a resource that you have.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I have a free offer that's on my website, and at first glance, it looks like it's about online marketing and getting clients, and it is. But I sneak in a lot of the stuff we've been talking about.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So they can pick that up at shesgotclients.com. It's actually an instant download about the top 10 secrets to more clients, credibility, and cash flow online, which we also dig into the spiritual and mindset side of entrepreneurship in as well. So they can check that out. And Instagram, if anyone's on Instagram and wants to connect, where me and Melanie have been connecting, at Christine G. I would love to connect with you there.
Yeah. And as you're probably going to find out by listening to this series, you're going to hear a lot of us talking about Instagram because it is a way that I find it's really easier to connect with people there and to build more I don't want to say relationships, but it's not about that. It's like really have connections pop up that you might not get through some of the other social media platforms.
Yeah, it's very fascinating how it's working. It's a whole different ballgame, but it's actually, I go there to escape Facebook.
Me too.
Yeah. I kind of.
Christine, you're so awesome. I really love this. And, as you guys are listening in here today, my guess is something's kind of cropped up for you too. Maybe you had an aha or an insight, or there's just something you really love that Christine shared. We'd love it if you come over to the blog at melaniebensonstrick.com. Share with us what your takeaway is from today, and if you're going to move something forward in your life, we always love to hear that too. I'm a firm believer that information doesn't become valuable until you take action on it. So we'll look forward to hearing you over there, and I'll look forward to seeing you again next week for another great resource and insight into how to optimize your small business for greater success. Bye, everybody. Bye, Christine.